Collectively Crumb, where we explore the books and collectibles that deliver the Crummy-verse to our hungry, hungry eyeballs. Now, this is the second episode of Collectively Crumb, and if you've been watching my channel, you may have noticed my new booktube series, Pickin and Flickin in the Nostril Zone, where we pick a book off my shelf and flick through it. What else could that mean? Well, this show is a bit like that show, except on that show we review books based on their own merits, on the art, on the story, on the presentation, what makes them interesting, etc. But on this show, we review books more in relation to Crumb's overall body of publications, and specifically for Crumb collectors. And if you go back and watch the first episode, my complete Crumb collection, which has expanded a bit since, you'll understand what my philosophy of collecting Crumb is all about, and how today's book, Crumb Family Comics, fits into that. Alright, here we go. So we got The Whole Family is Crazy, Crumb Comics. Wait a second, what's this called? Crazy Crumb Comics? The Whole Family is Crumb? Well, it's actually called Crumb Family Comics by Last Gasp of San Francisco. And this is really shiny, actually. It reflects a lot of light. I don't know what I can do about this, so I'll just kind of do my best here. It was intended originally to be a companion piece for the this is even more shiny. The Crumb documentary by Terry Zwigoff. This came out, I believe, in 1995, and so that was when Crumb Family Comics was intended to come out. But of course, that didn't happen. It actually came out in 98, I believe. Let's just see here. Yes, it came out in 98, and I guess this is the second printing in 2000. So, as I mentioned, this was intended as a companion piece to the release of the documentary, but because the timing never seems to line up with the DVD, I guess, this version, the Criterion collection of Crumb, includes an almost like a mini version of Crumb Family Comics. You can see even like the covers in here, and this little booklet includes a lot of the stuff that's in this book here, so we'll kind of compare and contrast as we go along. Now, this book, Crumb Family Comics, this is gotta be the premier book for learning about the Crumb family and their art. Like, there can't possibly be a better book than this on the market today. Opening up, we've got these great scans or possibly photographs of Charles's crazy notebooks, which you might remember from the film, this sort of graphomania, they described it. These are really neat to see. You can also pick up this basically zine that someone made. They call it a facsimile of Charles's notebooks, but it's really just a zine. It's only a few pages long, and this also has scans from Charles's notebooks. Like maybe this might be this page right here. I'm not sure. This page, no, this is definitely not this page. Anyway, the scans are not as nice, but you can pick this up. It has a few extra pages, but I mean, really, how many of these pages do you really need? I don't know. Then we get the line art for the cover here. This has to be one of Crumb's most overprinted pages. I mean, we saw it there in the little booklet, and it appears again in this book. Let's see if I can find it here. Might be closer to the end. Aha, here it is. I think this is like the exact same drawing, just obviously he changed Jesse after. You can see here he doesn't have his sunglasses, but I think it's the same drawing, just altered. So this is definitely in contention for the most reprinted Crumb in my collection. Then we've got a table of contents, very, very useful to me. And this border here, this is recycled from Weirdo number 4, I believe. That's with the Hieronymus Bosch recreation. And it opens with an introduction by Terry Zwigoff. He's kind of giving out about how this book was supposed to come out 3 or 4 years earlier. But Maxon, who assembled and edited this book, is not a fast-moving fellow. It's been a while since I read the intro, but I'm pretty sure it does mention that. Speaking of Maxon, then we have this introduction to the Crumb family. It's sort of a family history that's unfortunately written by Maxon. I'll get to that in just a minute, but it does include a lot of family photos, which, you know, they're not the best reproductions. I feel like you could have had much nicer reproductions of these photos, but, you know, there are a lot of them, and it's nice to see them. Now, as for the problem with the writing, you know, it's Maxon. If you've ever read Maxon in any of his writing, you know, he kind of writes a bit like a beatnik on a Buddha trip, which, you know, is not inappropriate, but, you know, he speaks in kind of beat metaphors, and, you know, he sort of leaves things hanging, and he speaks a bit in riddles like Yoda or something. And it's just not as straightforward and as informative as it could be. You know, it would have been better if it was written by Robert, or, you know, someone who wasn't, you know, affecting style as much. Here we've got a great pencil drawing by the young Charles Crumb. He probably would have been 19 or 20 when he drew this, maybe. This book really does have a lot of Charles Crumb's work that I don't think you can really get anywhere else. Certainly not as much of it together anywhere else that I've seen. And a few things in here I don't think I've seen anywhere else. This Arcade, I'm not 100% sure about all these titles here, but I don't think this was supposed to be like a zine or anything. I believe Arcade was like a series of letters he wrote to his friend Marty Pauls. And in fact, Marty Pauls, that's who you really want to have written the family history in this book. Unfortunately, he had passed away at this point, but he would have been perfect. He wrote some introductions to the complete Crumb that I think are quite good. Here we have some of Charles's inexplicable pirate comics. You can get some of the earlier Treasure Island comics that he did in the Complete Crumb Volume 1, but those I think are before he got into all this concentric line wrinkle work. You know, basically before he descended into madness and stopped making comics altogether and just became a writer. And you can see even this comic is sort of descended into pure writing. Honestly, I don't think you can get this stuff anywhere else, at least not that I've seen. Now here, this is what you're paying for with this book. This is the real juicy Charles Crumb letters. Now, there's several letters. These have been transcribed and adapted by Maxon Crumb, who does a very good job, actually. And he had to sort of transcribe and adapt them. You'll see they actually include a photocopy later in the book of one of Charles's actual letters. I don't know why they put it so late in the book and not here with the letters that they print, but Charles was very repetitive in his writing, and he only used 2 forms of punctuation, the semicolon and the parentheses. So they wouldn't be super readable, I think, if they weren't adapted by Maxon, who, again, did a great job with it. And as I said, there's several letters transcribed here. I guess they were all written in the early 80s, but they kind of relay a personal history starting in the early 60s and going right up to when the letters were written. And they cover a variety of, you know, topics from his high school years and, various relationships he had, his relationship with his father. And they're very personal and very revealing. They lend a lot of insight into Charles Crumb and into the film. And, these are worth the price of admission with this book. Excellent stuff. And this, I think, was one of the more popular things in the movie. The famous artist talent test, the mail away famous artist school's talent test that Charles Crumb took. Apparently in the DVD commentary, Terry Zwigoff says that he just found this in a drawer and asked Robert if he could film it. But it is very neat to see. And the Criterion edition of the DVD or the Blu-ray, it actually comes with a facsimile of this test, and I believe the whole thing is printed in both the facsimile and in Crumb Family Comics. So if the only reason you were going to pick up this book is for this famous artist talent test, don't bother, just get the DVD. Then we have a selection of Maxon's drawings and some of his writing. I think I'm a little hard on Maxon sometimes. I'm not the biggest fan. I think his art is okay. I like it more probably than most conceptual, artsy drawings that I see, but less than most comic art that I see. This one was in the movie. I actually like this piece quite a bit. I like how the arms they wrap around and become these kind of translucent fabrics, and you can see the nipple on this side and it's printed on the other side. And there's a lot of nice movement in the fan and in the hair. I like this one. I think they have some of his paintings printed in color in here too. Yeah, here we go. This one was in the movie. I was interested to see how condensed this painting is on the canvas. There's all this negative space. It's an interesting choice. I like this painting too. The Ham, a portrait in red. We've got this ass down here and this ham over here, but which one is which? Then we get some more Charles Crumb arcade covers. I'm not sure if these two are printed anywhere else. I really like this one with all the bunnies. I like the little freaky tiny bunnies, and I like the dancing ones. I like their little dresses, and the colors with the pencil crayon is really nice. These are really nice reproductions here in this color section of the book. What's this? Harpo Marx Comics. This has to be some sort of unpublished Charles drawing. And then we get some more Maxon paintings. This woman's looking very regal. And then these ballpoint pen drawings by Maxon. I really like these actually a lot. This is probably my favorite stuff that Maxon does. Just something about the way he handles the stippling. Yeah, I like the ballpoint pen drawings. That's my favorite of his work, I think. Okay, and then over here we've got... Oh, this is like some really early Robert Crumb life drawings of, his family. Almost not recognizable, the style. It's so early. I thought it was Jesse Crumb for a second. And speaking of Jesse Crumb, we've got some portraits here by Jesse Crumb done in pencil crayon. He's a nice illustrator. These are nice pencil crayon drawings. He would have been pretty young here. I'm pretty sure he ended up becoming a tattoo artist, at least if Sophie Crumb's Belly Button Comics hasn't misled me. This was in the movie. There's a scene where Jesse is drawing this woman from a photo of 19th century or early 20th century mental patients, and Robert is drawing the same woman from the same photo. And I'm surprised they didn't include Robert's sketchbook page over here. That might have been a nice contrast. I feel like that was a really touching part of the documentary. We've got some Sophie Crumb stuff here. She was probably 12 or 13 when she did this. I don't think it actually says how old she was or when they were done. here. Okay, all right, so this, it says she's 15 here, and this is from Self-Loathing Comics from 1997, I believe. So if she's 15 here, they probably collected the other stuff a little bit earlier. So, you know, I think I stand by it. She was probably 12 or 13 when she was doing most of this stuff here. Now, these handwritten blurbs by Robert Crumb. If you're looking for original Crumb stuff that you can't get anywhere, like Robert Crumb stuff that you can't get anywhere, these are pretty much it. There's 2 or 3 of these sort of memories that he's written out by hand, and some of them are reprinted in that booklet from the Criterion Crumb, but I think at least one is only available here. And this one is about Charles acting like a pirate, like his pirate character that he used to play. And this Treasure Island comic, this is reprinted everywhere. I have it here in the coffee table art book, reprinted in color. But this is another piece that's one of the more reprinted pieces of Crumb's art. And this is really a big problem with this book. If you're coming to it as strictly a Robert Crumb fan, you know, it does collect a lot of the most popular and most reprinted sort of autobiographical and personal comics that he's done. This would be kind of one of the exceptions, but the Schumann the Human comic. But this is here because Maxon co-wrote it. He got a writer's credit on it. But, you know, here's another example, My Troubles with Women. You know, you can get that in the Complete Crumb or Hup or the art book. So, I mean, you can get it anywhere, and you can even get a good deep dive into it on the most recent episode of Canonically CRUMB, Scotch, The Bully's End. So check that out too. But you can see that this is a book where if you already have another Robert Crumb book, you probably have some stuff that would be reprinted in Crumb Family Comics. So just beware of that if you're looking to buy this book. This one here, The Chinese Curse. I think this is kind of the most important of these Robert Crumb blurbs that are in this book. This one, if I recall, is about his father in the war killing a Chinese guy and believing that he was cursed by that, and that his eternally wimpy geeky sons were basically part of that curse. And it's really interesting, really entertaining. And this one for sure is in the little booklet that comes with the Crumb DVD. Let's see here. There you go. Again, these like handwritten bits here, unless you're gonna buy like all the sketchbooks and dig them out of there where they were probably originally written, this book might be the easiest place to get these. Footsie here, again, this one you can get anywhere. It's in the Complete Crumb. It's in, I think, Weirdo, wherever it was published. Now, this one here, this was in the movie, but it was also in the sketchbooks. But I think this was printed in id, which was like a floppy book that he put out in the early 2000s. It was mostly sketchbook stuff, but like this is a little bit easier to get than those blurbs. This one, I really like the opening. Who am I? A schmuck for one. I always like that. If I Were King. This is definitely reprinted some places, but it was originally from Hup, so I don't believe it's in the Complete Crumb. I'm flipping through the Robert Crumb stuff really quick here, just because this book's really about the family contribution, so I'll spend a little bit more time on those than on Robert. Now this one, My First LSD Trip, which again is reprinted everywhere. This is kind of an odd choice to put here because like this is from like the early 70s, whereas this other one is from like, almost the 90s. But I think this is here because the next page is I Remember the 60s, which I think is from a later issue of Weirdo. So, it's kind of jumping around chronologically, not so much in theme. And I remember the 60s. You can get that anywhere, including in color in the rcrumb coffee table art book, which is probably a better book to get if you're only interested in Crumb. By Crumb, I mean Robert. And flicking through quickly, you probably noticed that they tend to include more of the autobiographical Robert Crumb comics and the things that are kind of like emotionally about him, like very like overtly about himself, rather than the more wacky, psychedelic, cosmic cartoons and kind of funny stuff that he might do. Now we have kind of a girl gallery. This is some kind of sketchbook thing. These schoolgirls here, this is from, I think, Snatch or Jizz or Felch or one of those mini comics, those ultra raunchy mini comics. And over here, this is a sketchbook recreation of that original drawing. So this is from 79, but the original drawing was from 72. And I will just take this moment to recommend the rcrumb handbook if you're really interested in Robert Crumb. I think this is the premier primer or the primer of Robert Crumb. It really gives you a good overview about all sorts of stuff about the family as well, written much more clearly and maybe poignantly. But it doesn't include as much art from them, certainly not of like Maxon and Sophie and Jesse. It's got a little bit of Charles and, some more Aileen stuff that she did with Robert. That's the book to pick up. If you see the documentary and you're really interested in Crumb, but you don't want to dig into like all of the characters, this is the book to get, not family comics. Okay, some more sketchbook stuff, which, might be a little harder to get if you don't actually just buy the sketchbooks. Got the cover again. This is just the cover to some of the photo comics, the Fumetti photo comics that Robert did in Weirdo. These are very underprinted, like even in the Weirdo years, which collects, I think, pretty much everything that Crumb did for Weirdo. This is not in there. It's basically the letters in this. So, we need another Weirdo book that has the letters and the photo comics. Next, we get nearly a full issue of Dirty Laundry Comics, and this is in here because it's telling their story about moving to France, which is kind of like how the documentary ends. Spoiler alert. Oh, shit, I just ripped this. But it's smart to include it here because it's like an epilogue to the documentary. Now, this spread here, Head for the Hills, I'm not sure where this was printed exactly. I haven't seen it reprinted too many other places. It's probably from like the New Yorker or something like that. But it's a good inclusion too because it's all about their thoughts on the film and like how they feel about having been, partially used for Terry Zweigoff's project. And it even starts with them having just watched like a tape of the documentary and Robert saying, "Jesus crutch, that was excruciating." And then they kind of go for a walk to decompress and kind of discuss how they feel about it. He throws his hat away. "I can't wear this anymore." And, down here, they've got this great sort of surreal panel. How they're sort of manipulated like puppets. Up here it says TZ, Terry Zweigoff, the great director, sort of referencing Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator, which is referencing Hitler. And he's saying, "Go ahead, do your shtick." And little Robert puppets down here saying, "I hate all humanity so much." And Aileen saying, "I don't mind being an accessory to great art." Say what you want about Aileen, but she had a good idea of what the fans thought of her. And that's pretty much it. We get an afterword by Terry Zwigoff, and he kind of spends it addressing that Head for the Hills comic that we just looked at and being like, I didn't make them do nothing, and blah, blah, blah. He kind of gives out a bit. He kind of acts like they're a little unfair. Obviously, they're still friends, and he ends it with saying, don't miss my next film, Ghost World. Or in the inside back cover, we get the inside back cover of one of Charles's sketchbooks, nice to see. And on the back cover, we have another Maxon painting. This is another one that's kind of a smart inclusion. I don't know, maybe he made it for the book. But this panel here, hold on, he frames it a specific way here. Maxon after Robert. Maxon after Maxon, and Maxon after Charles. So what he's done is he's painted all of these, but he's tried to sort of express each of their styles somewhat in his own style. And it's kind of a neat little piece to see. It's kind of like a reflective art piece, more informative even than the introduction that he wrote. So there you have it. Now, this is actually a really good book. It's true, like I've said, that if you're really only interested in Robert specifically, this is not the book for you. If you don't want to have a lot of reprints in your collection, this is not the book for you. But if you're interested in sort of Robert's family, there's no better book that I've ever heard of for that subject. This is the book for you. And it's also a good book if you're really a big fan of the documentary Crumb. This is an excellent companion piece to that film because it lets you take a closer look and like a longer look at a lot of the artwork that appeared in there. And a lot of the things that are included in here, they really do answer a lot of questions that, might arise from watching that film. It really kind of fills in a lot of the backstory. So it's definitely an excellent companion piece to the film. In terms of rating this, yes, because on Collectively Crumb, we do rate these books. I give this 4.5 big asses. Now, keep in mind that I'm reviewing this as a Crumb collector, and I think this is a book that you probably would not get very much out of if you weren't already invested in Crumb to some degree. And if this was, for example, Pickin and Flickin in the Nostril Zone, this book might only get, 3, maybe 3.5 nostrils, just because of things like how shiny the book is. And, I don't like the paper quality, so I ripped it when I was reading this. And there's a lot of elements that would have brought it down a little bit. But, I think as something that you have to have in your collection as a Crumb collector, it's got a lot of stuff that you can't get anywhere else, really. Maybe not about Robert so much, but certainly about his 2 brothers and his daughter and his son. Aileen, you can probably find the stuff, but it's a must-have just for that. The letters, oh my God, the letters, you got to read these letters. If you're interested in Charles, who I think any kind of like even moderately serious R-Crumb fan, has some degree of fascination with Charles, this is where you get the dirt. This is, a must-have book in that respect. So 4.5 huge asses. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you liked today's program, please remember to hit like, hit subscribe, be a ding-dong daddy, and ding that bell. I've been your host, Kyle Bridget. You can find my link in the show description. And hey, tune in on Christmas Eve for Potter ZB, the non-denominational holiday special that dares to ask, what, me Mary? And if you'd like to support this program and myself, you'll also find my Patreon and donation links in the show description as well. Collectively Crumb will be back as weekly as possible to look at some more books and collectibles that deliver the Crummy-verse to our hungry, hungry eyeballs. Thanks again, and keep on moving.
Now here's my Uncle Pete, a bad old man was he. They caught him stealing horses and they hung him to a tree. Now here's a Mary Lou, she's standing on a chair. She's running from a mouse with a rat in her hair. Our old family album, it's the funniest thing. It's better than a picture show.